Oh my goodness, Mr Speaker. It is a pleasure to rise and speak to the second reading of this bill. But is the National Party ever scraping the barrel when they put David Bennett up to speak on this bill, who doesn't even seem to know that it was the Labour Party who brought paid parental leave in 2002. So standing up there saying that the Labour Party's never delivered to parents, and at the time Judith Collins said it was vote buying, that having paid parental leave was vote buying, and I think that member ought to go back and look at history, and then he may be a bit better informed. I think, he is probably feeling quite sad that he's had to rely on an opposition member of Parliament from Hamilton to actually have some influence over his government, given that he can't have any influence over it himself. But never mind, he's got to speak now. I think, Mr Speaker...
Point of order, David Bennett.
Since when has Sue Moroney been a member from Hamilton?
Order. Oh. I didn't hear the context, but Sue Moroney.
Well, I rest my case, Mr Speaker, I've got to say. With that point of order. But look, the other thing I'd have to say about the speakers that the National Party is putting up to speak up on their own bill is that I think it's quite sad, and if I was a woman from the National Party, I'd feel quite affronted that the one time they get to vote for extending paid parental leave, they've got their men speaking, and when they were voting against paid parental leave, with my bill to extend it to 26 weeks, Mr Speaker, they put all of their women up to take the heat over voting against it and opposing it. And I think that's a very cynical use of the women in the National Party, and I feel very sad for them on that. But the people who I do want to congratulate are the 26 for Babies Coalition, organisations like Plunket and like NZEI, and Barnardo's, and a whole range of unions who are standing up for working people, a whole lot of organisations who have relentlessly campaigned on this issue, and they are the victors today. They are the people who have won this victory for families, and there's no doubt about that. I also want to congratulate the 3,800 people who did submissions supporting my bill on paid parental leave, because I think they've made a big difference here. I think they've put the pressure. I think they've put the pressure on the government to take this measure. I also want to thank the thousands of people who sent this e-postcard to the Prime Minister, because I think they've made a real difference for families on this budget day, because John Key's probably just about had his inbox crash with the number of these e-postcards that have been sent to him, and I'm sure every single person who went on and pushed this e-postcard through to John Key have made a big difference. They've made a big difference to families, and they've certainly had a lot more impact than anyone on those benches has made on this issue. So I congratulate them. I congratulate them for that. Mr Speaker, this is a bill that the Labour Party will support because it's better than doing nothing. It's better than doing nothing. But look, there's not much more of nothing that the government could have done without doing nothing, to be quite honest. Well, it does, because they had pressure on them. They still had pressure on them, because my bill is still coming up before this Parliament. It's still coming up before this Parliament. And, Mr Rockenvall, I look forward to you speaking on that bill, because you did promise, after all, that any extensions to paid parental leave would come through that bill, so I look forward to that. But what we've got to do is actually get a consensus about getting to 26 weeks, because this mucking around the edges with 18 weeks, and not even 18 weeks now, but 18 weeks over the course of the next 2 years, for goodness sake. I have a bill before this House that actually gets us to 18 weeks on the 1st of July this year. The 1st of July this year, which is in fact what the government should be supporting, because if they had really listened, to the 3,800 people, 99.6% of whom supported the bill, my bill of 26 weeks, then they would be, in fact, not going into urgency, because let's face it, the measures in this bill, Mr Speaker, don't even come in until 2015. They don't even start until 2015. So what is the urgency? What is the urgent matter that we are here under urgency debating? It's about getting a bill in front of my member's bill. That's what it's about. So that's why we're in urgency. But, Mr Speaker, let's focus. Let's stop talking about the politics, because I know it's all about the politics for the National Party. But for the Labour Party, it's about people. And what... A point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Sue Moroney.
Mr Speaker, I'm finding it harder and harder to actually... it's always the case when we're debating children somehow.
I actually think that's a fair call. There's been a spirited period of members interjecting, and I just think a little bit more decorum now, please. Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm not sure what it is about paid parental leave that gets the National Party yelling and screaming, but it always does. But... Well, talk about Mr Sabin, who thought that the only people who deserved to get extended paid parental leave were babies that were hard-working, and I can't really understand that, because at 6 months I'm not sure how you can work out which is a hard-working baby and which is not. But I digress. Mr Speaker, when submitters came before the Select Committee, they said that 26 weeks was important, and they said that because, and Plunkett referred to it today, they put out a press statement saying, well, 18 weeks is okay, but really what New Zealand families and what babies need is 26 weeks. And they've said it for these reasons. All of the research and evidence tells us that if we can get exclusive breastfeeding to 26 weeks, to 6 months, that will make a huge difference to the outcomes for those children. It will mean that they will have a great opportunity to get some really good secure bonding with and attachment with their parent, but also it sets them up for a very healthy future. And that's great news, not only for that baby and that family, but it's also great news for the rest of New Zealand, because we all get to save precious taxpayer money on not funding more and more health services. That child gets a healthier life, we get to save money. That is a win-win, Mr Speaker. And that is the win-win that comes from properly developed policy, 26 weeks paid parental leave, not policy on the hoof, not the politics of just trying to get away with as little as possible like this government has done. Everyone in New Zealand knows that this government's been dragged kicking and screaming towards extending paid parental leave. They've done everything in their power to try and stop this from taking place. They've consistently voted against paid parental leave. They have threatened financial vetoes. They have filibustered my bill. They even asked me, and I in good faith responded, to extend the report back date of the bill. They have used every trick in the book, and as recently as the end of March this year, National Party members were voting against extending paid parental leave at Select Committee. So no one is fooled about this. No one is fooled. And the real shame about this is what New Zealand families need is they need a government in place that will absolutely commit and fully understand the importance of investing properly in families. A government that will actually know that investing in those early years reaps us benefits. Not just that families, I said, but reaps the whole country benefits if we do it properly. This half-hearted attempt won't deliver those benefits, and that's what we need. Mr Speaker, it's becoming more and more obvious that what we need is a Labour-led government that will take the support of families seriously. They won't take half measures. A government that absolutely fully understands how important it is to invest early, get it right from the beginning, and save ourselves a lot of heartache, a lot of problems, and yes, a lot of taxpayer money in the future.
Good speech.
Jan Logie.
Rise to speak again on, in this process of urgency on the budget measures, financial support for newborn children.